or she, her. Leading the service with me today is Worship Associate Paul Seidler, and at the piano, the fabulous Brenna Kupferman. We gather each Sunday morning on-site and online to share in life's meaning, grow in care and community, and open our hearts and minds to the sacred truth known by many names. We gather in community to restore the balance of our spirits, to celebrate the joys of life and find the strength to meet our sorrows. And in the earliest meaning of the word worship, to consider ideas that are worthy of our time and attention. Unitarian Universalism is a religious tradition that values diversity and embraces the wisdom of all faiths. We use science, reason, and the gifts of the Spirit to explore life's mystery and meaning. In this tradition, we know that people need not think alike to love alike. Whatever your history, however your heritage, and whomever you love, you are welcome here.
Our life together is full of wonderful activities and programs. Today at noon, everyone is invited to stay for the ceremony opening our Silent Witness, a month-long project to bear witness and to be allies to the victims of domestic violence. The shrouded silhouettes now leaning against the wall will be placed along the fellowship's property line as a visible reminder of those lost to domestic violence. And next Sunday after the worship service, there will be a congregational meeting to consider changes to the fellowship's bylaws. And it would be at this time of year without a word from our serendipity auction. Kimberly Roberts has a special message.
Boo.
Serendipity auction is coming up. It is on October the 28th. It's really important that you get your donations in so Glenn doesn't have to sit up all one night entering them. And you can do that either through the donation forms, which are located where you get your name badges. They're also in the coffee room under the big Halloween section. You can't miss it. There are sign-up sheets for doing food, for volunteering to help with our first annual children's Halloween party that will be happening during the auction. And again, make those donations. You can find the donation link if you would like to rather do it online. It's under activities under our website. There is a link there. So just go to members and click on activities and you'll find it right there. Thank you.
Well,
yes.
We could use 2 volunteers to help us with the IT.
Ah, did you hear that? 2 volunteers would be very helpful for IT that night. So if that's your thing.
To clarify, it's not really the IT, it's just to listen and record the...
Jackie and I were.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. Never mind. Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you during coffee hour.
It's great to solve those problems in real time. Paul.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, if you're on site here this morning, please stay after the service for coffee, refreshments, and informal conversation. And if you're a newcomer, you're especially encouraged to stay. Do we have anyone who's here for the first time? Would you introduce yourself, ma'am?
Hello, happy Sunday, everyone. My name is Nicole, last name Monroe, and I'm here to support one of my girlfriends for the domestic violence remembrance. But I wanted to get here early and enjoy the service.
Welcome.
Welcome for being
Nicole.
here. For those participating online, the Zoom will continue so that you can socialize with others who are online, although you'll have to make your own coffee.
During the month of October, our worship and learning theme is heritage. Today, we consider the power and momentum of our Unitarian Universalist heritage and its meaning for this moment in history. The Fellowship's choir, in a video recorded during lockdown, invites us now to center ourselves for worship with the message, "We are the ones."
We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting. 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 We are the ones, we've been waiting for. 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 We are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we've been waiting. We are the ones, we've been waiting.
Each Sunday, we light the chalice of our religious heritage. We do this for our ancestors who taught us through their various religious traditions and by their actions of justice and hope. We do this for our children who are learning the traditions we teach and who learn more from our actions than our words. We do this for ourselves so that we are inspired to remember our beginnings, reflect on who we are now, and spread our wings as we understand who we seek to become.
Thank you, Paul. Our call to worship this morning is an excerpt from the amazing poem, Freedom's Plow by Langston Hughes. First in the heart is the dream, then the mind starts seeking a way. Then the hand seeks other hands to help, a community of hands to help. Thus, the dream becomes not one man's dream alone, but a community dream. Not my dream alone, but our dream. Not my world alone, but your world and my world, belonging to all the hands that build. Let's rise now in body or spirit or both and sing together hymn number 1051, We Are. It's in your teal hymnal, and also the words will be on the screen.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child is born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. We are. For each child is born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. We are. For each child is born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. We are. For each child is born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. We are.
Good morning, beloveds. I am Jen Blosser. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm your director of faith formation. It is a joy to be with you this morning. I have a little story to share with you all. Before there was anything, there was God, a few angels, and a huge swirling glob of rocks and water with absolutely no place to go. The angels asked God, "Why don't you clean up this mess?" So God collected rocks from the huge swirling glob and put them together in clumps and oh, am I still on? Sorry, thank you. I suddenly couldn't hear myself. And put them together in clumps and said, some of these clumps of rocks will be planets, and some will be stars, and some of these rocks will be just rocks. Then God collected water from the huge swirling glob and put it together in pools of water and said, some of these pools of water will be oceans, some will be clouds, and some of this water will just be water. Then the angel said, well, God, it's neater now, but is it finished? And God answered, nope. So on some of the rocks, God placed growing things and creeping things and things that only God knows what they are. And when God had done all of this, the angels asked, is the world finished now? And God answered, nope. So on some of, and God made 2 humans from some of the water and stardust and said to them, I'm tired now. Please finish up the world for me. Really, it is almost done. But the humans said, we can't finish the world alone. You have the plans and we are only very little. God answered them, you are big enough. But I agree to this. If you keep trying to finish the world, I will be your partner. The humans asked, what is a partner? And God answered, a partner is someone you work with on a big thing that neither of you can do alone. If you have a partner, it means that you can never give up because your partner is depending on you. On the days you think I am not doing enough, and on the days I think you are not doing enough, even on those days we are still partners and we must not stop trying to finish the world. That's the deal. And they all agreed to that deal. Then the angels asked God, is the world finished yet? And God answered, I don't know, but you could go and ask my partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen, for that wonderful story by Rabbi Mark Gilman.
Each Sunday, we receive an offering to support the mission of this congregation. Here, we care for one another and we extend our love and care into the wider community through actions for love and justice. Your contributions allow this congregation to reach out to all who seek a life-affirming message of love and hope. If you're online, click the link in the Zoom chat to make a contribution. If you're on site, you may place a donation in the basket or use your device to find the link on uufhc.net. Whatever method of giving you choose, your generosity helps us to grow a healthier, more joyful UU community and to draw the circle of love and justice a little bit wider. Brenna?
In this time that invites us to lean even more deeply into our mission as Unitarian Universalists, we renew our commitment to responding out of deep care for one another. Now is the time to briefly share a joy, a sorrow, a gratitude, something you carry deeply within your heart this morning. If you're on site in the sanctuary, please come to the front and speak into the microphone while Paul helps you with your candle. If you're on Zoom, put in the chat a message about what you have to share, and Brenna will read it for us. A few gentle reminders. This isn't a time for announcements or for politics. Please do say your name and share from your heart and from your own experience. Be mindful not to share anyone else's experience unless you have their express permission to do so. So would anyone here like to share?
In this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love, love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, letting fear, worry, can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love.
The following is a reading entitled Shoulders by Naomi Shihab Nye. A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and 2 times south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near to his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care. His ears fill up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide, and the rain will never stop falling.
Each Sunday, we light the chalice of our heritage. It's a symbol of the power and struggle of the central ideas of Unitarian Universalism, the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. And like all symbols, there's a story behind it. Not actually just one story, but several, and I'll tell you a few of them today. Just before World War II, the Unitarian Service Committee was helping Jewish refugees escape Nazi persecution. Hans Deutsch, one of those refugees, created the design of a chalice for use on Service Committee documents and lapel pins. The Service Committee said at the time that the flame represented the spirit of helpfulness and sacrifice. The symbol and its practical use in the Service Committee's rescue efforts gave the chalice significance, meaning. After the war, the chalice became the official logo of the American Unitarian Association. When the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in 1961, the chalice, now centered in 2 overlapping circles, became the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist Association. In UU congregations, the chalice can be anything from the large bronze chalice with a flame floating in the oil in the basin, or a simple candle. Beginning soon after the war, soon after the merger, UU children began learning about the history of the chalice, and they began in their faith formation classes to make simple chalices, a candle in a cup. And they often brought them into a service for all ages, and lit them to show the adults what they were learning in Sunday school. 20 years later, in the 1980s, those children were adults for whom lighting a chalice at the beginning of worship seemed a natural expression of their faith tradition. This progression from practical image to religious symbol is emblematic of the longer history and heritage of Unitarian Universalism, a history that goes back 2,000 years. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to recite 2,000 years of religious history, but I will share with you some of my favorite stories. A few years ago in another congregation, I was sitting in a circle with a group of newcomers. They were answering the question, what brought you to a Unitarian Universalist congregation? One of my favorite questions. And one of them said, I've realized that I want to be with, I was going to say, like-minded people, but that really isn't right. I want to be with like-hearted people. And I thought to myself, now there is a profound theological statement. And it is. It neatly encompasses the two main threads of Unitarian and Universalist history. In a UU congregation, we gather a wide diversity of theological beliefs under one roof of shared values. Or to put it another way, we are people with different beliefs who worship together as one faith. And how do we do that? By refusing to be like-minded and ever seeking to be like-hearted. These ideas go far back in time. Many people who have never engaged with Unitarian Universalism may assume that we're nothing more than another mainline Protestant denomination. And there are some who are sure that we are a terrible heresy. The idea at the heart of universalism dates back to the early Christian theologian Origen, who was born in the year 184. Origen's heresy was the idea that God loves everyone. And that's the idea at the heart of universalism. And the idea at the heart of Unitarianism in its earliest form dates back to the theologian Arius, who was born in the year 286. Arius thought that God was a unity, not a trinity, a view that was later called Unitarian because it implicitly rejects the idea of the Trinity, and so Unitarian, not Trinitarian. I should add here that much of theological history and religious warfare centers on minutia. And a word about orthodoxy and heresy. The early history of Christianity, even before people called themselves Christians, after all, they were Jews who followed the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. It was a time of robust and creative theological development. Various groups in different places established their own canon of stories about Jesus and their own statement of the correct beliefs. The earliest we know of is the 2nd century Apostles' Creed. Now, here's something else we know about orthodoxy. A creed tells people in a group what they are supposed to believe. People belong if they assert the creed as their belief. Sometimes someone who disagrees with the creed, who argues about it, is called a heretic. And as these heretics offer up ideas that differ from what's in the creed, it often becomes important in orthodoxy to become a little more emphatic and specific about what is orthodox. At one point, I became really interested in this phenomenon. I noticed that the 2nd century Apostles' Creed, so fasten your seatbelts, The Apostles' Creed has 110 words. The 4th century Nicene Creed, which represents agreements by representatives of a multiplicity of early Christian groups, has 223 words, so more than double. And the 6th century Athanasian Creed, whose writers apparently hope to answer every possible heretical idea with a clear statement of orthodoxy, used 656 words. Yes, I am a bit of a geek. Now, we Unitarian Universalists don't have a creed. We have a covenant. A covenant isn't what people must believe to belong here. It's an expression of values, a commitment to one another of how we hope to behave. And here's an expression of what we Unitarian Universalists intend, what we value. We want to do good and be good. 8 words. Now, how do we emerge from centuries of orthodoxy to forge a religious community that welcomes people from a wide array of faith traditions? Here we are, Christian and Jewish, Buddhist and Hindu, theists and atheists. Some of us are Trinitarian Christians. We have religious humanists, secular humanists, earth-centered traditions and pagans. Shinto, the doors are open wide. There are so many stories about how we got to this place. I can't tell them all. But here's one. It's rooted in the invention of the printing press in the mid-1400s. That invention expanded access to the books and stories and versions of books, including books that presented the Christian scriptures not in Latin, but in the ordinary language of the people. This was distressing to some. People were burned at the stake in some places for translating the Psalms into French. In the mid-1500s, in Poland and Transylvania, the idea of God as a unity gained traction because people could look in the scriptures and see that the Trinity is not a biblical concept. And this was a source of great controversy, this point of view. In Transylvania, under King John Sigismund, this is a story I love, there was a lengthy scholarly debate about the Trinity. And simultaneously, as the scholarly ideas filtered into common discourse, ordinary people began discussing religious ideas in the streets and in the taverns. That's a quote from a historian of the era. People quite literally gathered in taverns to discuss religion. Sometimes, as can happen when beer and theology are combined, there were fisticuffs. I'm not urging us to imitate that behavior. What emerged from that time and culture was the 1568 declaration called the Edict of Torda in Transylvania that said, faith is a gift from God and not something the government can regulate. It was the first governmental declaration of religious freedom. One of the scholarly debate's participants was Francis David, and that's the anglicized pronunciation of his name, which was Hungarian. And so it's not very authentic, but it has the advantage of I can pronounce it. So Francis David famously said, "We need not think alike to love alike." And that's it right there. The idea of theological diversity united by love, by shared values. Just a year after the Edict of Torda, the idea of love as the touchstone for religious community became the basis for a remarkable attempt to put this value into practice. A dream, if you will, that became reality. In 1569, honoring the values of love and the inherent worth of every person, a group called the Polish Brethren formed in Krakow, Poland. The leading landowner, persuaded by these ideas, gave up his property so that members of the community could hold land in common. In both church and town governance, Krakow was a democracy. The former serfs had a voice and a vote in the community's decisions. To these proponents of inherent human worth, faith is a gift from God, right? Education necessary for informed decision-making was essential. So they founded a college that attracted more than 1,000 students, a third of them from the nobility and the rest not from the nobility. The radical tenet of academic freedom, rooted in a commitment to religious freedom, drew scholars from across Europe. Krakow became an important publishing center. Visitors to Krakow wrote about the amazing tranquility and harmony that had emerged from the melding of religious freedom with social justice. In Krakow, they found people who were clear about their values, tolerant of each other's diverse views, and committed to working in harmony. Isn't that what we hope our Unitarian Universalist congregations would be like? In April 1638, so almost 70 years later, the Polish government closed the college and shut down the printing press. 10 years later, the Cossacks burned the city to the ground. The survivors fled as refugees, and they carried their religious values westward, initially to Prussia, Transylvania, the Netherlands, and eventually to England and America. We are their inheritors. It's in our UU principles: respect for the inherent worth of every person, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth. Those are values. They create the elbow room for divergent ideas. Now, Unitarian Universalism, as it is today in America, faced its early controversies over orthodoxy and heresy. The first UU congregations emerged from the congregational churches of the Pilgrims. Now, we think of the Pilgrims who came to America as religious dissenters, and they were, yet they brought their own orthodoxy, a Calvinism that left little room for individual or independent thought. But the idea that people can read the scriptures and think for themselves is remarkably robust and persistent. In the late 1700s, there continued to be a simmering controversy over, yes, the Trinity, and also over the idea that the vast majority of humanity would be condemned to hell. The idea of a loving God, of religious community centered on love, was powerful, especially to hearts scarred with threats of damnation. In the early 1800s, the less orthodox thinkers, the heretics, were derisively called Unitarians. It was a derogatory word until William Ellery Channing, one of the great Unitarian ministers, claimed the name Unitarian as a badge of honor in 1819 in his sermon in Baltimore called Unitarian Christianity. The first so-called Unitarian covenant, not a creed, was the 1834 Harvard Covenant, 117 words, which expressed the earnest desire and intention to live a holy, religious, and useful life. America is a big country. When the Unitarians moved west, in 1886, the Western Conference of Unitarian Churches declared that all are welcome including agnostics, spiritualists, and atheists. 1886. And, as you might imagine, there was, for a short while, a split that could have become permanent. It was definitely a controversy. In fact, the historians now call it the Western controversy. What brought the different points of view together was the idea that people might diverge in their theological beliefs, but they shared a common commitment to bringing about a world grounded in truth, righteousness, and love. So this is our religious heritage, not one of like-mindedness or thinking the same. That's orthodoxy, that's creed. Our religious heritage is in some ways more complicated, but more simple, because it's rooted in the idea that love binds us together. We may differ in theology. In fact, we insist on it. The freedom to think new ideas is central to our religious tradition. And what makes that freedom work for us is like-heartedness. We are a like-hearted people. Love is that other strand that's central to our religious tradition. The chalice we light each Sunday morning is a symbol of this religious heritage. Its flame burns for all the values we cherish. And it burns as well for the dream of loving religious community that has persisted over 2,000 years. The chalice isn't just a symbol of values or beliefs. It's a symbol of the commitment to put those values into action, to put those values into the way we live. The road will always be wide. The rain will never stop falling. We need one another. We need to help others feel part of a loving religious community. We partner with one another and with the spirit of life and love to bring into being a world transformed by our love. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And now please rise in body or spirit as we sing together in the gray hymnal, hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. And I should add that the words in the hymnal say anointed by God. The words that you'll see on the screen say anointed by love, and I encourage you to sing whichever one you prefer.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land
Please be seated. The words of our benediction are taken from a poem by the remarkable poet Joy Harjo. It's called "For Calling the Spirit Back from Wandering the Earth in Its Human Feet," and this is only an excerpt. Call your spirit back. It may be caught in corners and creases of shame, judgment, and human abuse. You must call in a way that your spirit will want to return. Speak to it as you would to a beloved child. Welcome your spirit back from its wandering. It may return in pieces, in tatters. Gather them together. They will be happy to be found after being lost for so long. Your spirit will need to sleep a while after it is bathed and given clean clothes. Now you can have a party. Invite everyone you know who loves and supports you. Keep room for those who have no place else to go. Make a giveaway, and remember, keep the speeches short. Then you must do this. Help the next person find their way through the dark. Now we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into all the world.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round, attend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. This great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
And I should say, we're working on a new way to get coffee this morning. So go out back doors, turn left, go around, and come in the first door on your left. That's that little room there. Well, you'll find the coffee, and bring your coffee on out. And remember, at noon, we have the ceremony for the silent witness against domestic violence. So, and I see we have a number of visitors in addition to Nicole, right? And so please make sure you welcome them into our space. This is wonderful to have people here for this ceremony in this community.